Hello and welcome to Inspire with myself, Nicola Wheels. Today's guest is a successful British businesswoman, model, media celebrity and trans activist from Barry, South Wales. In 2021, she founded Zoah, a pioneering company that offers underwear and swimwear for transgender women. She's also the chief exec of Not a Phase, a charity that is working towards a brighter future for the trans plus community. Please welcome Danielle St. James.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, gorgeous.
Hi, how are you?
I am so good. I have been stalking you on Instagram for ages. And I'm like, I need to get on my podcast. And we finally got a day. We're in Derry and here it is. I
Made it.
love what you are all about.
Oh my God.
And I just want to share you with my audience, basically.
That's sweet. Well, it's lovely to be shared.
Yeah. So tell me, Danielle from Barry in Wales, where did it all begin? Like, where are you from? What is your background? What was it like growing up for you in Barry?
I think you can probably predate Barry with Gavin and Stacey because it brought something to it in terms of attention. Because predating Gavin and Stacey, it's just a knackered old seaside town that had better days in the 50s and 60s before like tourism existed to other countries. So yeah, it was just a bit of a tired old town really. But born and raised in South Wales. I think when people hear where I'm from versus who I am, they would people naturally assume, oh, you must have had it so hard, which is really interesting because I think Welsh people are a little bit different in that I think Welsh people are a bit more open-minded. I think Welsh people are a bit more friendly. I actually didn't have it hard. There's not a hardship story in terms of where I'm from. You know, my parents separated when I was really, really young, but have an absolute powerhouse of a mum. And so, yeah, it was me, my mum and my sister, brought up in Barry. I did well in school. I was relatively popular, didn't have any issues, wasn't bullied. I had a few run-ins with the teachers because I was, a very queer kid in a very Catholic school. But even take that into account, I mean, we're talking like late 90s, early noughties. My school had gender-neutral toilets and a unisex uniform, which is really...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like we we just had massive toilets that were all cubicles and everyone could go in there, and they did it to prevent bullying. And the uniform was the same for everybody. So there wasn't this sort of like struggle of like, oh, I have to be in the boys. My school moved me into the girls' PE class when I was in year 9 because they knew that I was responding better to being with the girls. I always had, I had openly had boyfriends from when I was like 11 and 12. And I always had a face full of makeup. I really like, I think my parents just thought I was like Bowie or Boy George when I was young because I was just sort of living out loud from very early on. But I'm really lucky in that experience because even if they'd have chosen different education for me, I heard absolute horror stories of things that happened in the boys' school, especially. I heard what happened there. There was people that I knew that went there. Horrible, awful things. But yeah, I was just kind of like the gender bending kids in the Catholic school. I remember they called my mum in. I was probably about 14. They called my mum in and said that they felt that I was deviating from God's path. Yeah.
What a line. What a line.
Keep in mind, I was never baptised or christened, and my mum's such a rebel. My mum forged baptism certificates to get me into the school. So they thought that I was like from a Catholic family. My mum was not Catholic in any way, but she'd forged and pretend that I was. But by that point, I was already in. And so, yeah, they said that I deviated from God's path, and my mum leaned over the desk and told her to go fuck herself.
Oh my God, your mum, I love her.
Yeah, so, I didn't stick around for too long. I actually left Wales the day after I turned 18, and I moved to Ibiza, where your hometown. I moved to Ibiza and I was there for the following 2.5 years, I think, 2.5 years. And then I left and moved to London. So yeah, I mean, the only bad things were like not specifically relating to my identity or anything like that, but it was just part of growing up and being a bit of a mess.
Yeah. Can you remember feeling and thinking, I want to do things like this, and this is what the boy should be doing, and I'm doing this? Can you remember that feeling?
Kind of. Yeah. Again, I had really progressive parents. My parents like met because they were both punks in the 80s. And when I wanted to wear makeup, I think I was probably about 12 or 13. I wanted to wear makeup. And I told my mum that I wanted to wear makeup and I needed her to take me to Blue Banana, which was like a goth shop, to buy me makeup because that's where I'd seen makeup. And I was like, you're not wearing makeup from Blue Banana. And she took me to Boots and bought me real makeup. She's like, if you're going to wear it, do it good. And so,
well, how amazing. Like, if I was thinking about, like, if that was me and my parents, now, like, my mum, would have been like, oh, let's just see. But my dad, I mean, he would have probably disowned me, like, and I think so many of us, of this, I'm 40, I know that you're 35, of that generation of parents, like, what a blessing that you had to be born with those parents. It's amazing.
I think had my parents have been together throughout, I might have had it harder.
Okay.
My dad and I have got a very difficult relationship. We no longer speak as of about 6 months ago. Again, not relating to me being trans. When I told them I was gay when I was like 11, my dad was completely fine with it. And when I told them I was trans, it was just before I moved to Ibiza. And then I came back 2 years later and I'd been on hormones 2 years. I looked very different. My hair was long. And he struggled with that. I know that he really struggled with that. And my dad had some really deep-rooted stuff. I remember when I told him I was gay, and he was so fine with it, but he had been conditioned to be scared of it. And he told me stories about, like, people that he had known through rugby. My dad was a rugby coach, he was a big, burly Cockney guy. And he had told me stories about men being sexually assaulted by other men and stuff like that. And he was just like, oh, this is a bad thing. He tried to warn me that older gay men were predators.
Yeah.
Which is obviously not true, but he was a product of his upbringing.
Yeah.
So it took me educating them. But my mum, my God, my mum was just like waving the flag for me from the jump. So yeah, I was really lucky. I was lucky to have my mum, and I was lucky that my parents got divorced, I think.
And you've got a brother, do you say?
Yeah, so I've got an older sister.
Yeah,
and then my dad got remarried and had my brother when I was, I think, like 12. So I've got by technicality a half sibling, but my brothers recently told me that they are non-binary, and I'm still adjusting to whether that means that I say brother anymore. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. We're navigating that. We're taking it as it comes. So we'll see.
A sibling.
I know. I did stop them the night they told me. We were leaving the Standard in King's Cross. One of my friends just did Drag Race, and we went to a Drag Race viewing party, and they told me just before the TV program came on, and we're all sat in this hotel bar where everyone's cheering for my friend who's on Drag Race, and they told me I'm non-binary. And I'm still, even in my job, I still feel like I'm always going through a process of education. And I think I found it really easier to talk about when it was friends and people that are in a peer level to me. And then all of a sudden, it's my younger sibling. And when we left the hotel, I said to them, I will adjust all of my language and I will do absolutely everything I'll follow your guidance. But if you instruct me to say that you're my sibling, then I'm just going to tell people you're my friend because it sounds really wanky. I was like, nobody says this is my younger sibling. I was like, so it's either brother or friend. So
I love that. But I also love that, you're like, you are in the community and you're still learning and educating yourself, because it's years and years and years of us just conditioning ourselves to, this is my brother, this is my sister, this is his, this is hers. And so to unlearn those things is for all of us. You know, it's
I mean, they had to do it, not just Cam, but my family had to do it when I transitioned. They had to adjust their language. And so I mean, in terms of it being within my family, I can only empathize in the way that they could only empathize with me. And I'm just going to go with what they tell me to go with until that works or doesn't work, and then we'll keep it moving.
Yeah.
But I think in society, you're right. Things are changing really fast. And I think that it's always important, especially in my line of work, that I never claim to know everything.
Yeah.
Because I can get put on my arse at any point by somebody correcting me. And I go, okay, am I reacting to this through ego? Or, you know, I need to check myself and go like, you don't know everything. Just go with it. So yeah, it's still a process of learning for me. And and because of that, I must be a few years ahead of the general population in relation to that topic. So I think it's really important to come at people with a compassion and say, and not make people feel stupid.
Yeah.
People don't learn by feeling stupid.
Yeah, exactly. And people want to do what's best for others, but sometimes they just don't know. It's not that they're being unkind. It's just they don't know any different. And so if you can educate them and just teach them, oh, by the way, would you mind if, you know, and then they take it as absolutely like whatever you want me to say, I would be happy to say that.
Yeah,
so,
I agree. Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I think one of the most British things that that can be said is when people say like, oh, as long as they're not hurting anybody. That's such a British way of speaking. And I really believe that that's how people in this country feel, is they genuinely want everybody to be okay, as long as it doesn't interrupt them in their Coronation Street. You know, like they're fine. And so the only times where there's like anger and hatred is when people are scared.
Yeah.
You know, and I think tapping into that fear and trying to say like, why are you scared? And then we've been through this before. We went through it with gay people, you know, like we know how this goes. It's going to be a rough ride. We'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Danny, you moved to Ibiza. Why Ibiza? Like, what was it that you were like, I need to move? Was it for you here?
When I was 16, I used to sneak into gay bars in Cardiff, and that was how I met the first trans people that I'd ever met, which changed my life, because all of a sudden I'd never seen somebody who I understood like that. I always thought I was a really shit gay boy. I thought I was really shit at being a gay boy. I don't really know how to do this. So I was just looking around at gay boys and going,
why would you say you're shit at being a gay boy? What, because you didn't fancy other boys, or?
Oh, listen, I've always been about the boys, but I felt at that time in my adolescence that I was shit at being a gay boy because nothing was instinctive. I didn't.
Okay.
None of it was just coming to me. It was things that I was emulating because I could see it. So when I first met trans people, when I was like 16 in these gay bars, all of a sudden I knew, oh, okay, I'm onto something here. I get it. Now I understand it. You know, these are the days before Caitlyn Jenner, you know, like information about trans people.
Yeah.
And so this will lead to Ibiza, I promise. All roads lead back to trans, unfortunately, in my life. And so I met this trans girl who was a dominatrix, and she was like nuts, absolutely nuts trans girl. And we became very fast friends. She actually ended up, her family were from the Caribbean, and she was from Jehovah's Witness background. Not really known for being the most accepting of people. She had a really rough life, like tough. She ended up moving in with me at my mum's house. So she moved in with my family. We took in this like down and out trans girl. And that was when I was 17. And we decided that we were going to go on holiday together when I was 17. And we went to a travel agent, probably pre like online travel bookings. And the travel agent said, oh yeah, you should go to Ibiza. But it was, get this, right? So she sold us this holiday and we went in April. Nothing happens in Ibiza in April. But anyway, so we went to Ibiza. I was 17, she was 19. We went to Ibiza, I think it was like mid to late April. The only things that were open were like horrible bars in San Antonio and the gay bars up on the street in the old town.
Yeah.
so we just went back and forth between those two places. But within that, I met all of these people that I'd never even dreamt of meeting before. All of these like wild, living out loud people. And so I think in my 17-year-old mind, oh, we need to go to Ibiza. That's where we're meant to be.
Yeah. They're my people. Like it's just a land full of colourful people who are who they are, and that is why I love it here so much. Like
absolutely, and a lot of the time they're like the rebels and the rejects and you name it. Like they're the ones that couldn't fit the mold of what happens in the UK, and so they found a different mold, you know.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. And so the day after I turned 18, which was the following April, I maxed out I maxed out anything that would give me credit as the second I turned 18, and I moved to Ibiza. And I rented a horrible little flat that looked over the bus station in the back of San Antonio. And yeah, I moved to Ibiza. Yeah.
Then did you move on your own or did you move with your friend?
I moved with her. We moved together.
Oh, amazing.
Unfortunately, she didn't really last very long. I think she lasted about 6 weeks, but I'm stubborn. And my family had said before I left that they didn't believe that I would last long. For me, that's all I need. All I need is to be underestimated.
Yeah.
And so I was like, not only am I going to move for the summer, I'm not coming back. And I'm going to live there permanently. I'm going to stay in the winter. Worst thing ever. Ibiza's horrible in the winter in terms of the people that are left over there. It's a lot of the time it's the people who've got nowhere better to be, or they're really, and they're in like the Alps. And so, yeah, I moved with her. She ended up, it was a whole mess. But yeah, I split my time between dancing for La Troya at Amnesia.
Yes. Oh my God, yes. I know that. I love it.
Yeah, so I was a dancer for La Troya. So we used to do the parades in Old Town on a Wednesday evening. And then I would dance at Amnesia in the night. And then the rest of the time, I was a laughing gas seller.
Oh my God.
I used to sell laughing gas.
And probably make an absolute fortune.
I earned more money then than I earn now.
Yeah.
I was like thousands a night. It was wild how much money I earned.
Yeah.
And then I ended up working for the Mambo Group and being in part of the estate there. But yeah, it was crazy. It was like the most perfect place to cut my teeth. You know, like there's no judgment there. And because of the overturning tourism, look, San Antonio is grotty, but I lived in San Antonio. I ended up living above Cafe Del Mar, stayed there for quite a long time, loved it there. But because of the overturning tourism, if I'm still working myself out, I can be a completely different person next week than I was the week before, and nobody knows any different. It was just a time of like trying things and working out who I was.
Yeah.
The Spanish medical system is so much more easy in terms of transition. I managed to get on hormones really, really fast and start my medical journey in Spain because they just have better infrastructure there. And I was just amongst my own people in the
How amazing. And so when you say you start your medical journey, so then would you go to the doctor and say, this is how I'm feeling, help me? Is that how it works?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a long time pre-Brexit.
Yeah.
So I got residencia, I think 2 weeks after I moved there. You just went down to the police station, signed up, and you were a resident.
Yeah.
I enlisted at a GP, and I went to him, and I basically said, like, I'm trans. This is what I want to do. And it was so much easier back then. He just wrote everything that I needed down and sent me off to the pharmacy. Told me to check in with them. I mean, realistically, I probably could have done with a bit of mental health support.
Yeah.
But I was getting that from the clubs. So
yeah. And the thing is, you're in, it's not like, I'm not sure if you're like, this is what I am. This is who I am. And I feel like even back then, someone meeting you would go, absolutely, and it's not like, oh, is this like, the name of your charity? Is this just a phase? It isn't. You knew. And so what are those drugs? Like, out of total curiosity, what is it that you take?
So I take estrogen every single day.
Even now?
Yeah, even now.
Okay.
You have to take it for life. So I take estrogen every day, and then once every 6 months I go and have this big old injection that it was developed as a prostate cancer medication, because prostate cancer is testosterone driven. And so what this medication does is it completely stops your body producing testosterone. And then so where you're supplementing with the estrogen, your system just becomes estrogen dependent. And that's why you get sort of like fat redistribution, breast tissue, and your body changes, your face changes a bit. Yeah.
Amazing. And does it stop like hair growing on your face and that kind of stuff?
Annoyingly, no, it doesn't. Anything that already grew is there. People do say that they see a reduction in body hair over time. I can't really attest to that, but I think I was just unlucky in the body hair genetics. So I've had a life of laser, electrolysis, waxing, shaving, you name it. I'm like the hair removal pro. And then is that what you started taking in, like when in Spain? You went off to the pharmacy, they gave you the estrogen and you started taking it. And how quick do you start to notice? I mean, that must be so exciting when you like, this is the tablet that's going to make me feel how I know I am. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I just started on estrogen. I wasn't on a testosterone blocker back then. So it was just estrogen. And I think I probably started to really notice things at kind of like the 6 to 12 month mark. It's really difficult for me to...
Oh, wow. Quite a long time then, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, there are some people in my position who believe that changes start to happen really, really quickly. I don't think the science backs that up. And I think some of it is like you just being very affirmed because you're taking it, you know. But I don't think I started to notice changes for quite a while. And then by the time I was ready to go down like surgical routes in my sort of mid-20s, they'd already had a really significant impact. Like my body shape was completely different. I had full breast tissue growth and all of that. So,
amazing! So wonderful. I just love it. And then so surgery wise, then what? Was that something that you knew you were going to have? Like, or was it just kind of part of a process? Like, I'm going to take the estrogen and then see how I feel.
Listen, like surgery for one trans person and surgery for another trans person is such a different experience. Yeah. So some people are like, they have a list of things and it's like, bap, bap, bap. Other people don't want anything at all. For me, I think I've just taken surgery over the years. It's like I'm just making tweaks that then make me feel more aligned as I get a bit older. The first thing I did was I had boob implants when I was, I think 24 or 25, 24, I think. It was so dodgy the way I did it. I was skin. I'd living in London, so I had like bloody nothing. I was running nightclubs in Soho. I was running a gay nightclub called the Shadow Lounge in Soho at the time.
Oh my God, I know the Shadow Lounge. I used to go there all the time.
General manager of the Shadow Lounge.
No way. I loved it there. What night? There was one night that I would always go. Oh my God, I can't even remember now.
What happened on the night?
Oh.
Do you remember any of that?
No.
Okay, so you remember.
It was... Yeah, let me remember. But I was dancing in the West End. So I was in Fame, the musical.
Got it.
In the West End around that same time. And we would always go to Shadow Lounge or Freedom Bar.
Yeah, or that little
little triangle. Yeah. Loved it. It was my life.
But I had no money. So I wanted to do the breast implants and I was saving up and I ended up so dodgy. I went to it was basically an office block in Poland, in a place called Wrocław in Poland. It was so bad. And I got there and I was like, this is a really weird place. It was literally an office block.
Yeah. How much did you pay?
I think like $2,500.
Yeah. So it's like $1,000, maybe $1,500 cheaper than what it would have been. Yeah. It's not even that much really, but...
By the time you paid flights, apartment, all of that, whatever. But do you know what put me off? I actually went for a consultation at MYA in London and they made me feel so shit about myself that I was just like, I don't want to get it done here. Like they were literally like so blasé. It was such a huge thing for me to do.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, come in at 8 o'clock. We'll have you out by 3. And I was like, oh, I kind of wanted to be nurtured a little bit more.
Yeah, I get that.
And so, but Poland, like, they kept you in for a few days. You had round the clock care. It was, I think back then, European surgery had not all been channeled straight into Istanbul. And so there were places kind of all over Europe where you'd go for certain things. Funny story about that, actually. So I went with my ex, and we're sat in the waiting room, and this really strange woman walks in, like covering her face and acting really erratic, sits directly opposite me. It's Danielle Westbrook in this office block in Wrocław. And we were on our phones just waiting. She thought that we were taking photos of her, started like popping off, being like, "You're taking..." I was like, who even cares who you are? But she was basically getting like a whole new head and body. She was getting like everything nicked, tucked and whatever. So she's in the waiting room, and then somebody else walks in and sits next to her, starts talking to her, big swollen eyes. Christopher Maloney of X Factor fame a million years ago.
Yeah, I remember.
He'd gone for his upper and lower eyelid removal thing. And so, yeah, sat in a waiting room in an office block in Poland. Me, my head of the paratroopers ex, Daniela Westbrook and Christopher Maloney. It's like a joke. It was so funny.
It's like something out of a comedy sketch, isn't it?
Yeah. So I had my I had my boobs done there, and it's really good. I mean, I love them. I've never had any problems. Great results. Really happy. But I found out a couple of years ago that the guy who did them ended up going into like loads of medical negligence cases, and like there was loads of people suing him. But yeah, I had no issues. So yeah, I was really lucky. That was like my step into procedures.
Yeah, but thank goodness they turned out fine. I actually, just talking about with Make Yourself Amazing, and I've never actually shared this with actually anyone other than the people that know me. So when I was 27, I had my first boob job with Make Yourself Amazing. And oh my God, they didn't listen to anything that I told them. And I woke up with boobs, which like I'm 5'2" and a size 6 with the double G boobs. They were bigger than Jordan's at the time. And I was like, what? And they're like, oh, it'll go down. And a year later, they were just the biggest boobs you've ever seen. Like completely, I lost jobs over it. But they said to me, oh, well, because you had quite a lot of skin where like I was bigger and then I got smaller in my 20s, that we had to fill it. So this is what we could do. So they just filled it with the biggest implant. Like they just took over my whole body. And I was so, like, I hated them so much that a year later I went back to see the surgeon. His name was Dr. Singh. And I saw him and my whole body went into shock. I was like so scared. And, you know, and that was one of the reasons I've had, just last year, I had a full mummy makeover, like boobs smaller, tummy tuck. But I went to Turkey and everyone's like, oh, you know, why are you going to Turkey? Like, you know, you need to stay in England. Like, it's where the best people are. It's safer. And I was like, no.
Not true.
It's not true. It really, really isn't.
Listen, we've all heard the horror stories of Turkey. Yeah. You know, the BBL people that have like, it's gone round. I actually know someone who got an infected BBL and now she only got one bum cheek, a whole mess. We've heard all the horror stories. However, when somebody has a bad experience, 1,000 people hear about it, but all of those people who have good experience, you never hear about it again.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a reason that places get known for medical tourism, and it's because of how effective they are and how much better their aftercare is. So I'm glad that you had such. I can't believe that they did that. But do you know what? Do you remember probably around this? It probably would have been around the same time, by the sounds of it, how aggressively MYA would be marketed to us. It was
aggressive
marketing. And I remember I went there and the girl who like led me into the consultation room was a full-on like used car salesman, basically. She's like, yeah, whatever you want, we give you this side, we give you that side, put this bar on. It was so forceful, and that was what put me off, was because they made it sound like, yeah, we'll give you massive tits, give you small tits, whatever tits you want. And it was just like, I don't want to do this. With the boob size thing, this isn't a horror story, it's quite a funny one. Before I had the surgery, I was like, everyone was saying to me, oh, what size are you going to go? You're not going to go too big, are you? And I was like, no, I just want like a model boob size, a little blue, little tiny implant. And I maintained that the entire way until I walked into the surgeon's office. And he was like, okay, so what sort of look are we going for? And I leaned over the desk and I said, get them as big as you can get them.
But also back in that time, so that if I was 27, 28, you would have been 5 years younger than me. So it's that time. I'm like, it was like Pamela Anderson, Jordan, they were it was like, that is what we wanted to look like, even though I didn't say that, but
my aesthetic icon from being a teenager was Anna Nicole Smith.
Like, oh my God,
I was
yes.
obsessed with Anna Nicole Smith.
Yeah.
And you're right. So it was just like the things have changed so much.
Much
at that time period. Huge boobs were like the height of feminine beauty.
Yeah,
the bigger your boobs were, the better.
Yeah,
and I do think at some point I'll probably reduce mine. I said to my partner last year, I was like, I'm about to go one way or the other as I get a bit older. I'm either going to go way more chilled, strip it all back, or I'm going to go full on porn MILF. And I'm going to get them 3 times the size, probably get a BBL and go fucking crazy on everything. And he's like, please don't do that. Please. I was thinking, yeah, like big mummy tits, but no, not going to do it now.
The thing is, just wait until, it's one of those things you'll know, because I was always like, more. And then I just get to a point where I was like, in myself, I'd look in the mirror and I'd be like, I like this. But then I'd see pictures of me or videos of me from other angles. I'd be like, you look like a cheap slag. I literally looked cheap and nasty, and I didn't look like Hollywood glam. I looked like skank. So that is why I was like, right, let's get
link in bio.
Yeah, I didn't look nice, but I've stripped it all back, and I'm still in the process of stripping it back. Yeah. I even have no nails on, which for me is like a massive deal. Like to have no nails,
really
massive. I was just like, nails, the hair, the lips, the teeth, the tits, the bum,
not much maintenance, so it's like a full-time job.
It is, yeah.
I'm quite glad in a way, but I'm allergic to gel nail polish, so I had to stop doing all of the nails a few years ago. So my fingers were just like, those pictures of Prince Charles with these massive sausage fingers. That was like me, but they had like acrylics on the ends of them, so I can't do it anymore. I just pay them.
Yeah. Just to make them look a bit more feminine, you'd have these acrylics, but it's
No,
so here I am.
Keep them small and square now.
So you've had your boob job in Poland. Then, and what are you doing work-wise at this time? You're working at Shadow Lounge.
I think I was at Shadow Lounge at that point. Yeah, I was at Shadow Lounge. I went on to run a members club in Chelsea afterwards, but not for very long. That was actually where I met Alex. But it was around that sort of time period, I think. And then since then, I mean, I've done a lot to my face, but outside of that, it's just been like little tweaks and things that I wanted at that time. Mm-hmm. I had a huge surgery on my face in 2021, the year after the pandemic. So only about a year and a half ago, actually. So it was October 2021 that I had it done. It's I don't know if you ever heard of FFS, facial feminization surgeries.
No.
There are doctors that specialize in it around the world, and they're basically they are surgeons that specialize in taking otherwise male attributed features and feminizing them. And so I basically got a head transplant. It was crazy what I did. So the list that I did to my face in one go, they cut me from ear straight across to ear. Whole face came down. Basically they sanded down my entire forehead, all of my brow bone and around my eye socket, so made the whole bone completely smooth. And then I had a brow lift, my hairline lowered, and then I had fat moved from my stomach to my cheekbones. And then they went through my mouth and they took 1 centimeter off of the whole of my jaw and my chin, completely reshaped that part of my face. Yeah, I had a lot done in one go.
Wow. That is amazing. So do you look completely different to what you looked like before?
I think if somebody needed glasses and they weren't wearing them, they could probably mistake me for the same person.
Okay.
It's just more, the way I liked to explain it to, especially to like my family, I'd be like, the way I will look is the way I look post Facetune. Like just like little tweaks.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like real life Facetuning myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do look quite different. I looked insanely different for the 6 months that followed the surgery. It's only when I look back at it now, I'm like, fuck, I had an egghead. I was so swollen.
Yeah. And it takes ages for your face to go down.
I think I'm only just seeing it not swollen over the last few months. It was so insanely swollen. And I was having a bit of an identity crisis, I think, because the week before I had this surgery, I knew I was scared because it was a huge thing to do.
Yeah.
But I went to my hairdresser, who I just adore, and I told him, make me ginger. I had my hair dyed full ginger, and then obviously couldn't put fake tan on after the surgery for ages because of all the scars and everything. So I had like a grey white face, bright ginger hair. I looked like Chucky. It was horrid.
It was not the vision that you'd visualised.
It was
this
not
gorgeous. That is so funny. Sorry, and when did you have that surgery?
October 2021. So, but yeah,
really recently.
Yeah, it's not that long ago. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I think it seems like longer than it was, but it's not that long ago.
Yeah, so during COVID, just after COVID,
Yeah, I mean, I think restrictions were still kind of in place when I went, because I think it was really hit and miss because we went on the Eurostar. And I think it was really hit or miss whether we were going to be able to go or not, because it was really limited services still.
Yeah, I remember that time.
So yeah, but I mean, kind of perfect time to heal because you're not seeing loads of people. Although we were like back to the land of the living by late 2021, people weren't socializing in the same way still.
Yeah.
So, yeah, kind of perfect time to get a new face.
And are you happy with the results now? I mean, you're just like absolutely gorgeous. But do you look in the mirror and be like, I like this?
Yeah. Oh my God. I am really happy. There are things that I think I would still tweak, like because I had so much bone taken off of my jaw. The skin's not as tight as it used to be, just around there. And so I actually had a consultation with a surgeon not that long ago to have a lower half facelift, just to like tighten it all up. And he said, I would never do a lower half facelift on somebody that's your age. He said, give it 5 more years and then we'll do it. He said, but if you do it now, you will need another one in 20 years. He's like, just wait, like, just deal with it. And so I think it's really easy when surgery is a really interesting one within my community, I think, because as you'll know, having had work done, it's a really traumatic thing to go through.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It looks so glamorous to have plastic surgery, but it's so traumatic.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever done much to your face, or if you I don't know if you've had much, but in the months that followed, it was very difficult to look at myself. And I actually also had a post-surgery complication. I had a horrendous infection in my jawbone that landed me in hospital for a while. And off the back of that infection, my whole face swole up. I mean, I looked like a toad. Like, it was so infected. And and so it was really traumatic because I had a semi-successful modelling career prior to the surgery. And I remember looking in the mirror at this mess and thinking, I've ruined it. I ruined all of it. And I'm just being so scared. But the reason I mention my community is physical and medical transition is so celebrated with, when somebody, like when one of the girls gets a new face, we're all like, oh, yay. Like, we're all so happy for her because she's got what she wanted, what she needed. But we are saving all of our money and celebrating what is sometimes one of the most traumatic things that you could go through, because it puts you into a complete identity crisis. And so it's a bittersweet experience because it's celebrated trauma,
Yeah. And also during that time, I remember, my healing from my body was like 6 weeks. And I remember like my mental health, and I don't really suffer with any kind of negative thoughts, mental health, but it was the darkest time because my body was in pain. I hurt all over. I didn't look like I wanted to look, like, so the results were not there yet. And it was like, what have you done? I remember thinking, you stupid, selfish cow, to myself.
Yeah.
I never told anybody that, because I remember thinking, oh God, no regret, it's going to be fine. But in that moment, when that time afterwards, you don't actually know. You really don't.
Got no
and
idea.
you're just hoping and wishing that it's going to turn out better. But it's scary, and you can feel really lonely and really I just remember feeling really angry with myself. Like, I've got 2 kids. Why have I done this to myself? Look at you stupid woman.
Oh, yeah, it's tough.
And it took it was 3 months.
After you, I bet once you were recovered, everyone's like, you look amazing. Wow. And so it's a really weird thing, because you get validation and celebration. This horrible thing.
Yeah.
Like we've kind of not. I think our generation is the first one where plastic surgery is so readily available. It's so normalized. But prior to this, you only had surgery if something was really wrong.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible thing to go through. But we're all like, she got new tits. Woo.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre. I've toyed with the idea of doing further body stuff. Like I thought about the BBL. I thought about, little tweaks here and there. And then I just think, do you know what? I just don't want to go through it. I just can't be arsed. And also, who am I doing it for? Like, I don't know. Some people it's vital and it really affirms them. I think for now, on the surgical route, I think I'm probably done for quite a while. I remember after you had Fat Tony on here, didn't you?
Yeah.
Right.
I love him.
Tony's like family, right? And so he had one of his sober birthdays. I think it was last year, and I was Courtney Love was coming, and she was late, and she's always late. She's always fab. She's always late, and she came in and she said, "Oh my God, I was just talking about you with Joan Collins," and I was like, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah, and Joan agreed. You've done it perfectly. You get your first facelift at 35 and your second one at 60. And I was like, I didn't have a facelift, but got it.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of true. Like, you can't, if you wanted to stay a certain way, you have to maintain it. So whilst I'm done for now, I'm sure I will be under the knife within the next 15 years.
I am 100% with you. Last year, I was like, I will never have anything done again. And my mindset is already, as and when I will, for sure. Because it's like, I'm 40 years old. I want to look and feel the way I do now. Like, I'm eating well, I'm exercising, but gravity does its own things. And, I am pro-surgery for anyone. Like, we're so blessed that we live in this era that we can. Like, come on, like, if you... And also that thing, I fucking hate people moaning, oh my God, I hate my nose. Just do something about it then.
Yeah. Get a new one or put a bag over your face and stop talking. It's like, I just can't deal with it. Yeah.
I know, so.
I'm definitely pro keeping up with things. Listen, if you want to age naturally, go for it. But
go for it, yeah. That's not me, honey.
I see people like us, it's an aging process, kind of like Jane Fonda. Like, so glam, so fab. She's kept her face in line. Like, her face is great. You can tell she's an older woman, but it's perfect. Or Cher, Jane Fonda.
Oh my God, what inspiration.
They keep it locked in, but it's who they are, but it's kind of locked. That's where I want to keep myself. I don't want to look much different in, 30 years. So,
20 years, exactly.
It's just maintenance.
I agree. Yeah.
Because I look
absolutely.
I love my mum, but like, when you talk about how she looks, like, she just hates how she looks. She feels like when you talk to older people about this sort of thing, it's like they become prisoners within their own bodies. They hate it. I just think, if it's obtainable to you, get the surgeries, get Botox, get the filler, get the threads, whatever it is.
And also, I feel like that generation, this is my mum especially, I look at my mum and she's absolutely beautiful, but she is like, oh, I can't get this done because what will so-and-so think? She really wants a facelift because she's quite like got crepey skin, really wants a facelift. And she's just like, oh no, but what will they think of me? What do they? And it's like, who gives a shit? No one cares. But that generation really care. Like, it just, their whole being is affected by what the neighbor or their friend Sally might think of them. And I just feel so liberated that that's not us. Like,
Oh,
if
God.
you don't like what I'm doing, then, you know, not
Keep
even my
scrolling.
friend. I wasn't.
Keep scrolling. I don't give a shit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we are coming into your 30s. And tell us about your underwear situation, your business in your underwear. Where does this come from? Talk how that came about.
Sure, yeah. The underwear actually started a long time before it launched. I used to have a job that meant that I basically spent half of the year in New York. I was split between New York and London. I spent half the year there. And I was with my then boss on this really long train journey between Washington and Manhattan. And I remember it so distinctly because basically I was dating somebody in Manhattan. And I was moaning to my boss, like, oh, I wanted to wear nice underwear, but there's literally nothing that I can wear function-wise. You know, call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
I make tucking underwear for people that haven't had bottom surgery, that keeps you like flat and in shape and all of this. So I was basically moaning to my boss, and I was like, you know, it's just really annoying because I really wanted to wear something nice to see him and all of that. And I'm kind of like scrolling through it, and my boss was like, well, why don't you, if you really hate it, why don't you just come up with something and try and launch it? And that was where it all began. And I was like, oh, I could totally do this, because prior to this, pre-2017, the only place that you could get like tucking underwear or advice were like old cross-dresser shops, like where they were like transvestite sissy made, and all of the underwear would say like
Yeah.
and sissy and stuff on it.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't see anything that was like, oh, this is nice. I couldn't see anything, and so went back to the UK. A friend of a friend was a pattern cutter for a freelance pattern cutter for fashion houses, and I told him what I wanted to do. We ended up working on this project for 6 months. I had all of these different patterns made and samples of like my dream underwear, and I then had the worst year of my life. It was the most traumatic, horrible year where everything went wrong. That was the year that I really fell into addiction as well. It was just horrendous. And I think in my mind, because it was such a traumatic, horrible year, I was like, I need to shut away everything that this year has been. And that included the underwear. So I just completely backbenched. I was like, I can't do it. But I still had the samples.
And why was that year so bad? Why was it?
I was sexually assaulted by somebody that I knew really, really badly. And I didn't deal with it at all. It happened in the house that I was living in. I was alone when it happened. And I continued to live in the house. And in the house, I was just reliving what happened. It was just the worst year ever. And then I escaped what was happening in my head by turning to drugs and alcohol really heavily. Made some horrendous decisions, ended up dating a drug dealer. It was just the worst year ever. And
did you report them to the police or anything? Or did you just stay, like it happened, and then you stayed in the same house that they were in?
Oh, they didn't live with me, but it happened in the house that I was living in. It happened in the house that I was living in. And basically, my bedroom in that house, the whole wall was mirrored. It was all mirrored wardrobes. And I was basically like knocked unconscious, but I was like in and out of consciousness, and I was watching it happen in the mirror. And I swear, I've never spoken about this, but I swear, like every day that I woke up, it was like I was watching a videotape in the mirror of it happening. And I just went out of my mind. And I didn't report him to the police because it took me about a year to use the R word. It took me a really long time to accept that what happened was that, because I remember I remember after it, the word that I the words that I used was, I was saying it was non-consensual. That was the only way I could word it. It was non-consensual. And I played it down. I think I only told like two or three people. I just played it down. But there was a fire lit in me that day, like in my head. And it was like the house was burning down in my head. Everything was just falling apart. This is such a long story considering you asked me how the underwear started. But
no, I love it.
Yeah, I was just falling apart, and I responded to it in the worst way that I could have, by escapism, and I went off the rails completely. I became an absolute nightmare. My family put up with so much shit that year, but not just that year, the years that followed. So I think it was like 2 years of 2 years of solid active addiction that followed it. But it was just horrendous. So everything that I had loved and was passionate about prior to that happening, I just couldn't even associate with me anymore. It was like I had to move house. I moved house. I changed jobs, and I just was different. I was just. It was when people go through that, they're different after it. You know, like it's like real scar tissue.
Can you remember people going like, yeah, like what's wrong? And did you just were not able to tell them? Were you just quiet about it?
The only time I would tell people about it was when I was really, really wasted. And I would cry, or I would get really angry. And I used to like call my mum in the middle of the night. And I never told her, I didn't tell her what happened at the time, but I used to call her in the middle of the night and like cry down the phone. Or I'd be at my friend's house party, and then all of a sudden I would just be crying and talking about it. This is, I mean, it's kind of some of the reasoning that led me to address my drinking and substance abuse was because every time, the longer it went on, the more it became like every time that I was drinking and getting high. And I started literally spoiling everybody's night every single time they were around me. I would go, it would like a switch would go in my head, and then all of a sudden I would just start crying. Babe, people work all week so they can enjoy their weekend, and then you've got me crying on your balcony for the fourth time. Like it's a lot, you know. Like I had to address that. And so and
then were you sharing in that time? Were you then sharing with them? Yeah, this is what's happened. Were you like telling them what happened when you were in that state? Okay.
Yeah, I did. I started telling a few people. I ended up telling my mum. It was the year that I got sober right at the end of 2019. But that summer, my mum came from Wales because one of my friends within a bit was doing a big show in London. She loves this friend of mine, so we went to see the show. But I knew we were going to drink, and I knew that we would drink at the show, and then I knew that we were going to drink after it as well. And I had built such a consciousness of when I drink, I start talking about what happened. And I was so scared that my mum would find out by me telling her when I was drunk, that I sat her down before we went to the show. And I said, I have to tell you something because I feel like I'm going to tell you later. And it's better that I tell you now than tell you later. And I had to tell her because I was so scared of myself. I was living in this like fear of myself all the time. And so to kind of like go back to like the underwear and what happened with that, because it was all trauma. However, throughout this entire time period, I was wearing my own samples. I wore these samples for 3 years before doing anything about it. I wore them every single day. I loved the stuff that I had come up with, but I just didn't have the confidence to readdress it. I didn't have the confidence to say like, I'm going to do this. The year we started the charity, which is like, it's the thing I'm the most proud of my whole life of with the charity is, but a lot of my work is very serious, and it's talking about stuff that's really like brutal. And there's a big part of me that's like thrived in creativity and like fun work and stuff, and I've worked in and around fashion and creative fields for the last like decade, you know. And so there was just this like unfulfilled bit of me, and so towards the end of 2020, I'm trying to work out the timeline. Oh no, it was 2021, because I launched the company 2 weeks before getting a new face. So stupid, the worst thing I could have done. I was so like, I came out of anesthetics and I'm on emails, ridiculous. But that started because my partner Alex, he said to me, we were having a meal, and I said, I just don't know what to do outside of the charity. I feel like I'm kind of losing my professional identity a little bit to the cause, and I don't really know what to do. And he said, for God's sake, make the underwear. Like, you wear it every single day. By this point, the underwear as well was like, the samples were knackered. I'd worn the same like 5 pairs of underwear for years. Like, it was like, for God's sake, get new underwear and make it. Just do it. And I needed a bit of a boost from that. So I went on Instagram, where I've been really lucky enough to build, like a relatively decent engaged following. And I went on the stories and I was like, hey, I want you all to know that I haven't announced this, but I have been thinking of it for years, and my dream company is to make underwear. What do you all think about this? And it was like instantaneous. Please do it. Please, please, please do it. We need this. We need this. I was like, okay, I've got something here. So I took the samples that I'd had made to somebody's fashion studio in Camden. We worked out roughly how many pairs we could make per day off of it. So we went through this whole process, and I said, you know what? I'm going to do a 48-hour sample sale with no products made. Like, there was nothing made. But I said, if we sell 50 pairs, I'm going to do the company. If 50 people say, I want this underwear, that's enough for me to say, let's start it. So I just plugged the shit out of it on Instagram and social media. And I was like, I'm going to do this, but I need you to buy into something that won't be with you for a few weeks. And I sold 350 units in 2 days. And so all of a sudden I was like, I've got to do it. I have to work this out. And so, yeah, it was like a baptism of fire of like learning how to go from nothing to running an underwear brand. And now it's been running for, I guess it's like between 18 months and 2 years. And now we've got this whole product range. We've first line of swimwear for trans women that made headlines around the world. We've got this whole collection of products, and the sales are good every single day. Without fail, there's sales every single day. And all I do is a bit of Instagram posting.
Amazing.
It takes care of itself. So yeah, it's and it's honestly like my dream company come true.
That is just so inspirational. And what is your, like, do you have a vision for that? Like, would you like to have your own shop, or maybe have your underwear in Harrods? Like, what's kind of the big vision for you?
There's retail talk. I've spoken to a couple of retailers. I'm really keen to get, the underwear has got a really high profile in America, more so than in Europe. Our biggest customer range is in the States. And so right now I'm kind of focused on like, okay, how either working with a retailer in the States, or working with a distribution service in the States. I think long-term goal, my aesthetic for the underwear, the reason that there are tucking underwear options available, I think there's like maybe 3 or 4 other companies that do it. They're all really heavily sexualized, and they don't speak the language that I understand in the way that they are marketed, the way they look. They're not comfortable. And I just don't respond to the way. And so I made something for myself that I knew other people needed. And so I think the language that my brand speaks is very much in the same ilk, in an aesthetic, kind of like Skims. And so I think long-term goal for the brand is kind of like, to have Skims that is functional for my community in the way that it looks and the way that it feels, because Skims is all about comfort, and so is mine. I wear my own products every single day, and I know how comfortable they are, and I know what the alternative is. So I think long-term goal, continue building it, extend the range so there's something for everybody. I love the fact that we do swimwear, because I remember when I was 18, 19, I would dance on the party boats that left San Antonio. And I was dancing for La Troya, so I would get contracted onto the boats. And they would give everybody the same uniform, and it would be this tiny little pair of underwear and a crop top that said the brand name of whoever we were dancing for that day. And I used to have to tuck, to be quite graphic, I used to have to go to this DIY shop in the back of San Antonio and buy electrical tape. And I used to have to electrical tape myself in place. Yeah. And then wear underwear over the top of it. And then I had to dance for like 4 or 5 hours on a boat. And because I was electrical taped, I couldn't go to the bathroom. And so I couldn't drink. And so I would do like sips of water or shots, moderate for the entire boat party. I would be so dehydrated and in so much pain from being electrical taped. And if I had swimwear when I was a teenager, or, you know, even now, you know, if my brand didn't exist, going to the beach or going to the pool is not something that we that trans people are able to just say yes to. It's like it's such a premeditated thing. Somebody else can throw on a swimsuit and go to the pool. We can't do that, but we can now. And so I just want to continue making stuff that I'm
oh my God, I never ever would have thought of it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make stuff that I was like...
Yeah, and the thing is, the best... Sorry, go.
No, I didn't say anything.
I was saying the best businesses in the world come from solving people's problems. You know, like you have made a solution. You know, you were the perfect example, and instead of moaning about it, you created it. And what an amazing, empowering story. Like, I just know that your brand, I can see in like Times Square, that billboard, Zoah, like you with your bikini on, like that is the future, you know, and you're the, like, for someone, you know, like me, who's not in your community, what I feel that you have done is that it's not like your community and then the rest of the world. You've bridged that gap just to make it just like, this is just normal. And I think that's, you know, that is the future, and how I hope, you know, for all of us, that it's not like them and us or this and that, or it's just everybody is seen as the same, and you wear a bikini, whether it's one with the tucked in or not, like it's just sold and seen as the same thing.
Completely. I think what you said there as well about how the successful businesses are the ones that solve a problem. When I've done interviews about the underwear previously, like especially with people that are not trans, and I say like, once you put your underwear on in the morning, once you pick which underwear you're going to wear and you put them on, tell me how many times throughout the day you think about the underwear you're wearing. And it's never. People don't put on their underwear and then think about it again. It's just on and they're going about their day. However, without the products that I make, let me tell you, it's all consuming. You are so aware of how painful the other options are, of how they might have just moved and now you've got to go and readjust. You're so hyper aware of underwear that you can't function properly. And so the stuff that I make allows you to put it on and then you don't even think about it after that. Like, I'm not going to if I go to the beach, you know, I live on the beach. If I go to the beach and put my swimwear on, the only time I think about my swimwear is when I'm putting it on. That's it. And then I'm just out the door and I'm having a really nice time. Yeah. So it's such an empowering thing. I think it sounds really like hippy dippy, but you know, your underwear and your swimwear is the thing that sits closest to you throughout the entire day. Like, your underwear is what is against your skin. And I really believe this when I say that if you have underwear that is making you feel in pain or uncomfortable or fetishized or any of the above, you know, that is gonna have an impact on the way that you feel about yourself the entire day. It's going to impact how you walk into the meeting room, how you walk and meet your friends, because you're reminding yourself every single day, I'm in a world that's not built for me. That's how it feels. I'm in a place that's not made for me. I'm not supposed to just be free. I am wearing this horrible, painful thing, and I'm thinking about it all day.
It's like you're being punished.
So
isn't it?
Completely. Yeah. And so, like, it's such a simple idea, this, like, you know, like underwear in all different skin tones and shapes, but really it's empowering people spend less time thinking about their oppression and more time thinking about like how they're going to thrive, you know?
Yeah, amazing. What an absolutely wonderful story. I love it. And Danielle, can you share with me your charity? So where did this come from? So this came just before the underwear, is that right?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So the charity is, I'm just really bloody proud of it. It started around the same time as COVID started. So like sort of like early 2020.
Okay.
It originally started as a fundraising campaign for another charity that was run to raise money, but really quickly it snowballed. And it was a response to the fact that, listen, I'm really lucky. I've had quite a privileged experience, and I recognise the privilege in my experience of the fact that, you know, like when I wanted to have the surgery, I was ready to have to, you know, I was able to do it. When I wanted to come out, my family were really accepting. I've always had loads of lovely friends. I've always been surrounded, you know, all of these things. That's actually quite a unique experience when you're talking about people of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, the charity was a response to how isolating and how shit things are at the minute. You know, like a lot of my time is spent educating people on what's really happening for the community right now, and it's a dire time. It's really, really quite scary, and the charity was a response to the fear of how bad it is. And we run projects all over the country. We fund projects all over the country, and it's grown to such a big level, and we are just so proud of it. It's doing really, really big moves at the moment.
Amazing. And when you say, so for someone like me who's not in the community, when you say it is a dire time, what is that? Why is it so bad right now?
Sure. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about what people in my community are fighting for at the moment. I think if you pay attention to the media or to the government, you'd be led to believe that we are trying to take over gendered sports, that we're trying to, you know, like make prisons unisex or whatever else they're all talking about. And that's not true. I mean, it's just simply not true. I could take you issue by issue, and show you how empty and baseless the accusations are. The reality of it is that with heightened awareness of our community over the last 5 to 10 years, has also come a higher level of scrutiny than we've ever faced before. And we live in the UK. We live under Tory leadership who have completely, I mean, systematically failed this country. The country is in a worse position now than it's been in for decades. But they are doing now the same thing that they did during the AIDS epidemic with gay men. They are distracting people from how bad things are by using a minority group to scare people into keeping them in power. Because for them, what they're saying is like, oh, you vote in these lefty, woke, Labour, Lib Dem, Green Party people, and all of a sudden, you know, your kid's swimming teacher is going to be a drag queen that's untucked, and you know, like they use these like they use people's fear as a way to keep them in power, and the media and the government are both operating under right-wing leadership. So this is happening across the board. But what happens then? You know how we spoke about earlier on, and I said, I genuinely believe that British people are fence sitters. As long as it doesn't interrupt me and my meat and 2 veg, my TV at 7:30, my husband, my 2.5 kids, and my, you know, people want the best for everybody. However, that is interrupted when people are made to feel scared. And we are currently being used as the distraction technique to scare people. Not only that, I mean, in the last 5 years, the hate crime statistics have raised by 332%. People are being attacked. It's horrendous. Not only that, we've got a an underfunded medical system in this country that has been systematically privatized under Tory leadership to the point that it is completely broken across the board. But when we're talking about trans healthcare, the wait lists for people to be seen by medical professionals, an optimistic range to be seen by a specialist is between 6 to 8 years. Optimistic. I mean,
years.
We're talking people are waiting more than 10 years to be seen for the first time. They're working through these wait lists. Their funding is constantly being cut. It's a double-edged sword, because with heightened visibility, and this also goes back to the point that I said, like, I didn't know who I was until I met a trans person, and then I got it. We're seeing more visibility than we ever have before. And what that does is it gives people the courage and the reference point to say, oh, that's who I am.
That's me, yeah.
I believe that if I'd seen a trans person represented authentically when I was a kid, I would have been like, oh, I know who I am. I get it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have felt like a broken gay boy that didn't know how to be a gay boy. I would have been like, oh, I understand who I am now. So with the heightened visibility and awareness comes the fact that more people feel comfortable to live authentically. But when you have a medical system that's completely broken anyway, you've got more people joining that wait list, less money being spent on dealing with the wait list, gatekeeping medical systems put in place throughout the entire way. It's luck of the draw whether you get a GP that'll even refer you, because they're not educated on it. So you have to be lucky to get a good GP. I think it's something like you've got a 1 in 7 chance of being referred by your GP for the first time you ask for it. You have to keep asking or swap GPs.
Wow.
This medical care crisis is having such an impact on people's mental health.
Yeah.
I know 2 people since COVID. I know 2 people that have taken their lives because of the wait times. This is epidemic level.
Yeah.
And then you have people that are trusted public figures, like Ricky Gervais, J.K. Rowling, whoever it is, try and utilize verbiage like women's rights, because they are trying to push the narrative that trans people being given equal access and equal opportunity has any impact on women's rights, which we know that it doesn't. Especially when we're talking about like gendered spaces and stuff like that. Trans people have been allowed to go into the bathroom that aligns with who they are legally since 2004. We haven't had any issues. We're fine. However, here we are. It's this vicious cycle. The media, the government, trying to say now that all of a sudden we need to be scared of trans people. Listen, I transitioned when I was 17. I have never been scared to go into public bathrooms until the last 2 years. And I now try not to go into public bathrooms, because all of a sudden I feel like there's a bigger chance that somebody's going to recognise that I'm trans, and there's a bigger chance of a problem now because people are really scared. And so now I tend to only go to public bathrooms if it's like unisex, like an accessible toilet or something. And that's me speaking with the privilege that I have, having had all of the surgery that I've had, transitioning young.
Yeah.
There are people that didn't transition until they were, I don't know, 40, 50, 60, who have a harder time in terms of like possibility. They can't then, what are these people supposed to do? The conversations, I could talk about this for hours. There's so much injustice happening at the moment, and these people are not seeing that we've seen how this cycle goes. Like when I refer back to the way that gay people were treated in the 80s and 90s. We're seeing the exact same language used, the child groomers, the sex criminals, and all of this. When people look, that's not true. Like it's just not true. More people. There's somebody on TikTok who I love, who does a weekly tally of the people who have been who have been charged with child sex offence acts. And say like, I don't know, 50 people a week. And I think the last time I saw it, she's been doing it, she's up to week 16. And out of all of those people, I think 2 have been trans, and almost all of them have been like in religious environments. So like church pastors, like teachers. The fear is not warranted. It's just not. And also, we're talking about a demographic of people that make up 0.3 to 0.5% of the population. We represent the smallest group of people, but the media would lead you to believe that there's one of us on every corner.
It's like, and now everyone's trans. That is and I don't even watch the news. I just consume it by my social media from whatever pops up. But that is so the case actually. Now I think it's like, oh my God, you've got to be scared because everyone's becoming trans. Like it's like one, it's not happening, with two, like it's a bad thing. Actually,
But also, like, we've seen the exact same language used against gay people. Like I remember when I was little, this was under the Section 28 was a piece of legislation that was enacted until the early 2000s, was brought in by Margaret Thatcher, and it prevented people from talking to kids about sexuality and being okay with who they are. It destroyed people's lives. I grew up under it. You probably unknowingly grew up under it, They're about to try and bring in legislation that does exactly the same thing, but for trans people. We know that this destroys lives, and we know that kids cannot be radicalized into being something, because if that was the case, then every child would be straight, because the only examples that they're given are of straight heterosexual cis couples.
Like you're not who you are because you saw something and then decided that you were born who you are, and then only over time were you able to identify that, because of there's no examples out there.
If I'd have led by example, I would have been a rugby player like my dad was praying for.
Wow. It's fascinating.
Yeah, and so that was why the charity came about. Something that we have really come to understand, especially over the last year, with how it's getting progressively worse. It really is. I keep trying to be optimistic, but things are not looking good at the moment. And what we really recognise with ourselves as an organisation is now is that our only responsibility at this time is to be a source of optimism and joy. And so we just do projects that make people feel good, that bring people together, that give people a place to go, that we lead by positive example, and that's all of our focus is now.
Yeah, absolutely. And what an amazing job that you're doing. We just need more of you, more of the pop-up events. But I think this is probably one of my most favourite and interesting and like insightful conversations that I've ever had. So thank you so much, Danielle. I've got one final question that I want to finish with, because this is all the question that I ask every single person.
Okay.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh, how young are we talking? Have we got an age range on it?
No, just, if you could look back and you could sit down with yourself, what would you say to her?
Really funny, but I can't say it because of something that we were talking about before we start recording.
Don't do it.
What advice I would give myself would be, don't just because somebody validates who you are doesn't mean that you have to give all of yourself to them. I spent a big chunk of my life, not only in a romantic sense, but across the board, just because somebody would say that who I am is okay, they would get every single bit of me.
Okay,
and have free access to not only my body but my heart and my emotions. And I wish I could go back to myself probably around the 16, 17 mark and say, like, the thing you have to be the most protective of is you, is like you. Like, don't stress about like things and money and all of that stuff. Like, just don't be so easy to give all of you away, because I think that would have saved me a lot of undoing,
Yeah, I totally relate to that, especially when it comes to men. I was exactly the same in my 20s. Someone saw me, thought I was pretty. I was like, oh, wow, I'm so grateful that you noticed me. And then before I know I'm in a relationship with them, I don't even like them, but they see me. And so therefore I'm with them.
Yeah. I was exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I think back to a lot of situations with men where I was just seeing myself, but only through their eyes. You know,
Yeah.
like I could only see who I was through their gaze. And I just wish that I'd had a little bit more self-assurance. And I wish I knew the end. I wish I knew the outcome of it all, that everything would be okay. Just be a bit more protective of yourself. You know, I wouldn't have given myself so freely to people in all contexts.
Yeah, absolutely. Danielle, it has been the biggest pleasure. I feel like I've got a bazillion more questions. I could talk to you for ages. But for now, this is the end of our conversation. Thank you so much for being, for me, really open, vulnerable. I feel like maybe I asked some questions that I should have probably known, but you just answer them so beautifully and without making me feel like I should have known them. So thank you for that. And I know that this conversation, people will listen to this and feel heard, seen, and noticed because of what you have shared today. So thank you so much for being such an inspiration.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's so nice to finally get to chat to you properly, and thank you very much.